I request all the delegates, please take their respective seats and settle down. We are starting this session shortly. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to begin our inaugural session at the 9th CII India-LAC Conclave. I request each and everyone to please settle down and take their respective seats as the dignitaries have already arrived. We are starting the session soon. Only for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, you all can join me in welcoming our speakers for the session as they walk on the dais. Chief guest today, Dr. S. J. Shankar, Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Government of India, Mr. R. Dinesh, President, CII, Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General, CII. I request everyone to please settle down. Excellencies, distinguished delegates from LAC region and other parts of the world, and business leaders from India. Please join me in welcoming our chief guest for this session. May I now request Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General, CII, to formally welcome.
It's tough to settle down, as many of you have just about landed and have almost come straight from the airport after 20 plus hours of journey. But thank you very much. Excellencies, Dr. S. Shankar, our Honorable Minister for External Affairs of the Government of India, Honorable Ministers and dignitaries, as Honorable Vice President, Her Excellency from Venezuela, Mr. Dinesh, the President of CII, Excellencies, distinguished delegates from the LAC region and other parts of the world, and business leaders from India, very senior officials also from our Government of India, especially the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Commerce. A very good morning and a warm welcome to all to this very, if I can say, a transformed edition of the Latin America Conclave, and we have titled it as Furthering Economic Partnerships for Shared and Sustained Growth. And it's indeed a great honor to welcome our distinguished guests from the LAC region. And we sincerely appreciate your traveling this distance to come to our country and to engage with our business community and talk to our senior leadership, which really reflects the mutual interests. Thank you very much for your support, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege for us here now today to especially welcome the Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Shankar, who we all know his relentless efforts have played a very important and a key role in bolstering the India-Latin America ties. And Honorable Minister, we personally witnessed your commitment to the LAC region during your visit to Guyana, Panama, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, all of that in April. And in spite of the challenges of logistics, you made it possible to be there. And the business community from India, there was a presence of a strong business community who accompanied the Honorable Minister. And they came back. We sent a delegation from CII, and when they came back, they were so encouraged to see how much of opportunity was there, which you really led. And during the visit, some of the major sectors of cooperation that were discussed and relevant ones, many of which we have included in this summit, which is taking place. It covers energy, health, pharma, some of the developmental partnerships, capacity building is an important area, agriculture, innovation, technology, and defense and infrastructure. So it's really to build on your visit and explore a few more emerging sectors of collaboration between India and LAC. This conclave is being put up. And following the COVID disruptions, the conclaves comes when we are in India at the helm of the G20, and the Global South really is playing a great part in the economic development. Honorable Minister, during your visit to the region, which I spoke about, you had pointed many factors I had seen through the papers and others, 10 positive issues that you had talked about, such as the economic size, the digital transformation, exports, and others that make our businesses an advantageous partner for the LAC countries. And the impetus from that visit is reflected from the fact that we are joined by the Executive Vice President, Her Excellency from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and Minister of the People's Power of Economy. We have Finance and Foreign Trade, as well as 17 ministers from 11 countries, governors of 2 of the most important provinces from Mexico and Cuba. Very warm welcome to all of you, and we are indeed grateful that you could come here in spite of the distance that we all talk about. And from the perspective of this, from the Indian industry, from the business, we were really trying to look at how we structured this conclave given this background. And first, we are trying to look at, to bring together when we are talking about reshaping the global value chains through diversification of trade and higher mutual investments, our opportunities in the Latin American region, and also how we could, in fact, focus on certain sectors like manufacturing services, agriculture, and infrastructure. We have deliberations around these in the conclave. Second, we have also focused on emerging technologies whose advances, of course, offer phenomenal scope to build partnerships such as startups, digital healthcare, education, digital commerce, R&D, innovation. So this is, again, as you will see, a part of the conference during the next 2 days. The third, of course, the climate change mitigation. We have focused on it, and that's an imperative that features very strongly into our conclave, along with renewable energy, bioenergy, agriculture, and sustainable and green products. Therefore, we have 12 sectoral sessions covering these diverse areas that I had been talking about, and we would like to deepen this engagement. Since 2007, we have been involved in this conclave, but since the last few years, in our deliberations and discussions and the advice that we have got from our Honorable External Affairs Minister, his focus and his directions to us have always been strategically to see how we engage deeply into the region. And therefore, we have a very reshaped and a very differently modeled Latin America conclave this year. And so we do wish to take advantage of that. Once again, a warm welcome to all our governors, ministers, delegates, dignitaries from the LAC region. And I really welcome the officials who have come and the business delegation which has come. And I'd like to also welcome our Indian business delegates as well as our government officials who are present here. Very, very special welcome to our chief guest once again, on the Honorable External Affairs Minister of India. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. May I now request our Dinesh, the President of CII, to make his remarks, please.
Dr. Jaishankar, Honorable Minister of External Affairs, CB, Excellencies, distinguished delegates from Latin America, other parts of the world, and Indian friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege for CII to come together with our friends to host yet another conclave of the India-Latin American countries. My very special welcome to Dr. Jaishankar, and we are very grateful to you for your continuous support and valuable insight on how we can further this relationship between India and the Latin American countries. As CB mentioned, you have been very active. I think 3 countries last year and 4 countries this year where CII has been very privileged to accompany you and further pursue the agenda of furthering this relationship. While the 2 continents or 2 countries are separated geographically, there is significant complementarity and synergy that exists between the 2 regions. The economic dimension of our partnership is actually the platform for the Global South and the way in which the global south countries can work together to sustain economic recovery and work on resilient supply chains and make sure that there is much closer integration of the developing countries. I think we now are on the cusp of a great opportunity to make this grow faster and further. As CB already mentioned, this conclave is a perfect platform to deliberate on how we can not only strengthen economic bilateral relationship, but pave the way for accelerated investment flows and further collaborations between the private sectors of the two countries. In alignment with the current government priorities, I think there's a huge opportunity to further the trade between the two geographies, so to say. Already, we have many Indian companies who have invested in this region. Speaking of TCS, Infosys, whether it be TVS, Bajaj, they have been creating jobs and exploring it as a gateway to other economies as well. In that background, if I could mention a few specific areas of focus for us. First and foremost, we have 50 billion of, I would call it, very evenly balanced trade between the LAC and India. I would be a little bit ambitious to say that we should target a 100 billion number by 2028, which I believe is achievable. Two, the focus on, I would call it, sustainable energy resources is something which India has already committed to. As all of us know, we have had significant increase in trade with Brazil on this front. But is there a possibility to look at joint ventures and partnerships in energy exploration, production and distribution, and exploit the natural resources which are available in abundance in the LAC markets, and see how they can be harnessed for the benefit of both of these countries together. Second is with regard to the agriculture and food security. Again, both the countries, both the nations can work together in terms of collaborative efforts in agriculture research, technology transfer, and value addition to make sure that food security becomes a core focus for both of our regions. I would say that the governments can identify, and of course it has to be a specific country-wise approach on the horticulture and meat products where we can build global value chains for addressing third world issues as well. We all know about the pharmaceutical and health services leadership which India has achieved. Mutual recognition agreements and fast tracking of approvals could help in this regard. While many Indian pharmaceutical companies have been present in that region, I think it is important that we further increase this. To make sure this happens, I think there is a great opportunity to consider a free trade agreement that will encompass trade, investment, services, and non-tariff barriers as well. As we now move on to the focus on infrastructure, I think India has had great success with public-private partnerships, and there have been good learnings which other countries can work with. I think there is a possibility to create an infrastructure dialogue between both the sides that could identify a shelf of projects for mutual investments and support and make it happen. An increase in infrastructure will obviously help the logistics sector, which I think CB mentioned is a big challenge when it comes to how we engage together, considering the geographical separation. The last 2 points I'd like to finish with is in terms of digitization and innovation. I think India and Indian companies have taken the lead both from the fintech sector and the way in which we could work together to develop best cost solutions. I don't want to use the word least cost, best cost solutions for the relevant markets and the relevant countries. I think there is an opportunity to create significant financial linkages with the countries through both interoperability of digital platforms as well as see how this digital innovation can be leveraged for the benefit of both markets together. And for this, we will need to create necessary forums for knowledge sharing and partnerships through educational and research institutions as well as with the private sector. And finally, and most importantly, is the need to have more cultural integration by making sure that we can promote people-to-people ties, better connectivity, and most importantly, to build this partnership of trust, which will then further the economic activities together. From our side, we'll continue to work on these issues and support greater engagement, and we now look forward to the guidance and support from the Honourable Minister on this. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a proud privilege now to really welcome someone who has for decades guided very strategically the Indian industry for its global forays, and especially our institution, in seeing how we from the Indian industry are able to be effectively connected globally. Someone who has not just given strategic inputs and guidance, but someone who has actually held our hands over the decades in many, many avatars of his in seeing how Indian businesses actually flourishes, and internally we have therefore been able to become so much more competitive over the decades because of the way he has handled and led us in our global forays. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a proud privilege and honor to welcome our chief guest, Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Honorable External Affairs Minister of India.
President CII, Mr. R. Dinesh, Director General CII, Chandrajit Banerjee, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Excellencies, the distinguished ministers. I know 17 of our colleagues from 11 countries are here with us today, and that I think itself is a cause for great congratulation. Representatives of the business world, those who have taken an interest in the development of India's cooperation with Latin America, a very good morning to all of you. I am truly delighted to be here to address the inaugural session of the 9th CII-LAC Conclave on furthering economic partnerships for shared and sustained growth. I see that the program of this conclave is very well laid out, that it encompasses all sectors of interest to both India and to LAC countries, and that there are separate sessions focusing on regional groupings such as CARICOM and SICA, which underline the diversity and breadth of our engagement. Parallel investment tracks, reverse buyer-seller meets, sector-specific sessions, visits to industrial clusters. I think all these together will provide a 360-degree visibility and understanding to the delegations about the promise that India holds today. I am, of course, particularly pleased to be here with you because, to me, meetings such as these are actually proof that foreign policy delivers, that at the end of the day there is business to be done, there are contracts to be concluded, there are numbers by which you can actually measure successes or challenges in foreign policy, and this is for me a very, very good occasion to do that in respect of Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, this conclave takes place in the context of the upgraded engagement between India and LAC countries in recent years. Over the last 9 years, since Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been at the helm, our ties have actually moved on a new trajectory. Indeed, India's relationship with the region is being nurtured across the full spectrum of the Indian leadership. Latin America and Caribbean regions have witnessed notable engagements with 34 high-level visits, which include 6 visits each from the President and the Vice President and 4 from the Prime Minister. The most recent, of course, among them has been the visit of our President to Suriname, where she was conferred the country's highest distinction, the Grand Order of the Chain of the Yellow Star. And this honor only underlines our historic relationship and the tremendous goodwill between India and the region. In turn, India too has hosted 38 high-level dignitaries, and we are adding a few more today, with 8 of them being presidents. Furthermore, our commitment to greater contacts is also evident through the establishment of 2 new embassies in the region, one in the Dominican Republic and the other in Paraguay. Now, as you would have noted, I have been personally myself making regular visits to the region, and I assure you the count would have been greater than what Mr. Banerjee told you had it not been for 2 years of COVID. So I expect next month to be in Cuba, and I still hope very much that during this term I will have further opportunities. But so far, I have visited Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, more recently Guyana, Panama, Colombia, and the Dominican Republic. As I said, I look forward to being in the region again. But I also want to make the point, and I say this as much for the Indians in the room as for our colleagues from the LAC region, that many of these were really first ever visits by an external affairs minister. And I think that in itself is a reminder of the need for us really to pay greater attention and to invest really more time and energy in this account. Additionally, we are now covering a lot of ground by actually meeting on the margins of regional and multilateral events. This has allowed us, for example, to meet with CII, with CARICOM, with SICA, and again next month when we have our annual meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, I expect to see many more of our LAC colleagues at that time. Now, during my interaction, I have noted a growing interest and for deeper engagement with India. And it's also been very heartwarming to see the goodwill that India holds among the people of the region. And I must say that I've in my own travels, had a chance to experience some of that, not just in official functions, but even in a manner of speaking on the streets. These contacts have only reinforced the significance of trade and of people-to-people connections, and they serve as a reminder of the shared challenges and opportunities that India and the Latin America and Caribbean region face. Today, we need to reflect on the impressive growth of trade between India and Latin America in recent times. Our trade, our bilateral trade, has surged close to $50 billion during the financial year 2022-23, and it is a testament to both the strength and the potential of our economic partnership. It is worth noting, and I give these comparisons really as a reference. It is worth noting that India's exports to Brazil, for example, stands at $10 billion, which is almost twice of actually what we export to Japan. Similarly, our exports to Mexico is in excess of $5 billion, which is actually more than our exports to Canada. With the Dominican Republic, our exports last year were $329 million, and there are some Asian countries which still haven't come to that level. So I make this comparison to underline the point that these are serious trade accounts. These are growing at a very rapid rate. It's important we really sort of step on the accelerator out here. And if these numbers are an indication, I think people should understand that any effort here, the investments of time and energy will be very, very rewarding. Now, Indian companies have played a significant role in this growth, and with a strong presence in sectors like agriculture, energy, including renewables, information technology, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, automobiles, among others in the LAC region. They have made an aggregate investment, and I know investment figures are always a little debatable here, but I would say it's safe to today assert a ballpark figure of about $15 billion as the investment today of Indian companies in this region, and that too is a reflection on the levels of interest that today Indian businesses have in the region. Now, when I look at different sectors, I would like to particularly mention agriculture, because this is one area which has seen a significant uptick in recent years. India and LAC are today the two largest consumption economies, and therefore food security is really critical to both our populations. Indian sustainable farming techniques do complement LAC's availability of arable landmass, thereby ensuring productive, efficient and sustainable agriculture using digitization and water conservation technologies. Indian businesses have also invested in decarbonization technologies in the region, and among the notable investments which we have seen are millet farming in Guyana, edible oil production in a number of countries, agrochemical manufacturing sites in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia and Mexico, and the setting up of agro R&D centers. This, coupled with interest in developing improved germplasm and developing cold chain centers, actually indicates that our collaboration is moving from strength to strength. Now, beyond that, India is today successfully executing projects in the Latin America, Caribbean region to develop critical infrastructure, including power transmission. There have been some notable contracts which were awarded in the last few weeks in this regard. Roads, oil and gas, and also connectivity, renewable energy, and we are now seeing the beginnings of defense. Our development partnership is another expanding element of our relationship. Government of India has extended so far 35 lines of credit to our partners like Bolivia, Cuba, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Nicaragua, and Suriname. Close to $900 million have been extended under these lines, and we've already completed 21 of these committed projects. Our development projects, certainly we are proud of this, that they have generated local employment, and these delivered by India projects, I think today are a testimony of our capabilities. They are impacting lives in the region. And I was very pleased when I was visiting Guyana that at that time actually we had the delivery of an ocean-going passenger cum cargo ferry, which was a delivery which I believe was done below cost and before time. So I think that is also a statement today of what our industry is capable of. As to rapidly growing economies, it's natural that we should also explore the demand-supply fit between us more aggressively. This is evident, as I said, from our rising trade figures, but also today from oil imports that are taking place from Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and Guyana, and the fact that we are today importing crude oil and POL, petroleum oil and lubricants, worth $7 billion from Latin America. This was the figure for the last year. And that we are exporting actually a similar amount in terms of refined products. I think this is something which is definitely worth noting. If you look at the automobile sector, the car exports to Latin America actually today constitute 1/3 of India's global car exports. And Mexico is actually the second largest market for Indian cars. Other major markets are Chile, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, and Guatemala. Motorcycle exports also constitute 1/3 of India's global exports. And Colombia here is number one as a market for our motorcycles, for our two-wheelers. But again, I must acknowledge Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru as other significant markets. Latin America's capabilities in producing and supplying raw materials also gives it a very special edge when it comes to trade. The region is a big source of gold, copper, and other mineral concentrates, and also for wood. India's gold import from the region last year stood at in excess of $6.5 billion. And these were mainly from Bolivia, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Argentina, Mexico, and Ecuador. Chile was the main supplier of copper, and this too was in excess of $1 billion, followed by Peru, Panama, and Brazil. We've had countries like Uruguay, Ecuador, Brazil, Argentina, Panama, and Costa Rica who have emerged as significant suppliers of wood and wood products. So let me now move on to the field of health. And, as a country which is asserting its capability as the pharmacy of the world, it's natural that we would have supplied COVID vaccines to nearly, we did to nearly 100 countries, medicines to 150 countries, and many of them were actually in the Latin America and Caribbean region. In fact, I think the vaccine supply to Latin America and Caribbean was roughly about 9 million doses to 21 countries of the region. But more than the supply, for us, it is a matter of great pride that we were the first suppliers of COVID vaccines to many of our LAC partners, even though supplies were available close by. We are now espousing the concept of people's pharmacy. This is Jan Aushadhi is a concept that we have propagated in India, which is to make medicines, especially generics, available at a very reasonable cost to the low-income segments of our population, but even the others benefit from it. So it is something which, a model which we believe that many of you might have an interest in. We have been a consistent exporter of pharma products. Today, again, our trade, our direct trade with Latin America and Caribbean in this, on this particular set of exports is about $1.5 billion. And we are the top supplier of pharmaceuticals to some of your countries. India's large talent pool is also exploring today the global workplace, and it's natural that that exploration would bring us to Latin America. We are willing to work with LAC countries to make movement easier and between our businesses, between our people. And I have every confidence that as we enter an era of the knowledge economy, of artificial intelligence, that the digital businesses will grow and will actually catalyze our cooperation, taking it to higher levels. And one thought which I put forward for your collective consideration is whether we should be discussing and negotiating mobility agreements. Because today legal mobility is increasingly important in a world where we think of a unified workplace. And we have done mobility agreements with a number of countries. We see that as something which is mutually beneficial. So I would really urge it as a subject of reflection for this conclave. Now, the numbers and the descriptions that I have given, I think, are surely a source of optimism. They point to a wide spectrum of opportunities that await us. And, President Dinesh spoke of a target of 100 billion. I'm a great believer in targets. My Prime Minister is an even greater believer. And we have seen when you actually put a number out there, it becomes a motivator in a way that, it somewhere creates that desire to reach a particular goal. So I would really be very much with him in this regard. I think you said 2028. I had actually put 2027 in my speech. So I'm willing to go for your number, but I hope we will end up closer to mine. But as I look at the future, really there are four pillars which I see today as the source of intensified engagement between India and the Latin America and Caribbean region. These four pillars, to my mind, number one is supply chain diversification. Because the pandemic has shown that today there is an urgent global need for more resilience and reliability of supply chains. Whether it is energy, whether it is food, or whether it is even consumer security. The international economy today needs multiple and redundant sourcing. It needs more diversified production. That is something where really there are new opportunities for us. The second is resource partnerships. As you can see today, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. Talking of numbers, the Prime Minister has put forward the ambition of becoming the 3rd largest economy in his next term. So that's a number out there, both for the term and for the place in the global economic hierarchy. But as we expand, you can already see today the rising demand for oil, for gas, for strategic minerals, for food commodities. And you know, this is part of the growing progress and prosperity and the rising per capita income in this country. And we see this as really a big opportunity for our partners in Latin America and Caribbean. Indian products and services, in turn, we feel will help to meet the expectations, aspirations, and the price points of the rising middle class of the Latin American region. So we do believe here that there is a resource partnership and a manufacturing fit which would work to our advantage. The third pillar is the sharing of developmental experiences. As countries of the global south, we can surely benefit if we actually talk to each other about digital capabilities, about health solutions, about agricultural practices, and about infrastructure capabilities. Increasing training and exchanges will encourage more market exposure. And my one big takeaway from the last trips that I've made to Latin America is that we in India have to find better ways of actually growing the training and exchange part of our relationship. We have to customize it much more for the requirements of the Latin American Caribbean region. We have to make it more user-friendly, much more relevant really for your priorities. And that is something today that my ministry is looking at very, very seriously. The fourth pillar is, of course, addressing global challenges. Because while we have all the requirements of bilateral and regional cooperation, there are actually larger issues, global issues, planetary issues that we also need to look at, because we are very important stakeholders in that as well. And collaborating on issues such as climate change, the concerns of the global south, reforming the global financial and multilateral structures, I think these are very essential. And many of you would have noted that in our G20 presidency and initiatives like Voice of the South Summit, these are proof of our intentions. These are really a testament to our commitment to partners in Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, a stronger relationship between us obviously holds a lot of potential, a great deal of possibilities. And by harnessing our shared strength, our experiences, our capabilities, our resources, we can actually create a lasting partnership that will benefit both our regions. We live in a globalized era and we must now make sure that distance is no longer an impediment. Modern logistics offer us collaborative possibilities, so do modern communications. And we have today the scope for partnerships that we could not have even imagined earlier. So our business creativity, the demand in each economy, especially the growing middle class demand, the competitive capabilities that we both have, these can actually truly create great synergies. I have no doubt that this conclave is another step that would fuel the increasing intensity of our cooperation. I'm truly gratified to see the scope, the scale, the level today of the meeting. And I think this bodes very well for the future of our partnership. Once again, I welcome you all, but I also wish you a very productive meeting and very, I would say, worthwhile sessions in the days ahead. Thank you very much for your attention.
May I now invite Excellencies for the photo opportunity and request all the liaison officers to escort them on the dais as I am taking their names. His Excellency Dr. Gomez, Executive Vice President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and Minister of People's Power for Economy, Finance and Foreign Trade. His Excellency Mr. Fernandez, Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Transportation and Investment, the Government of Antigua Barbuda. His Excellency Mr. Loaiza, Minister of Development Planning of the Plurinational State of Bolivia. His Excellency Mr. Williams, Minister for Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, Government of Grenada. His Excellency Dr. Anthony, Minister of Health of the Cooperative Republic of Ghana. Mr. Campos, Secretary of State in the Office of the Presidency of the Republic of Honduras. His Excellency Mr. Rivas, Minister of Economy, Government of Nuevo León, Mexico. His Excellency Caesar, Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries, Rural Transformation and Industry, St. Vincent and Grenadines. His Excellency Mr. Pinto, Minister of People's Power for Foreign Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Honorable Mr. Quintero, Governor of the People's Power of the Cienfuegos Province, Republic of Cuba. His Excellency Mr. Sepulveda, Governor of Nuevo León, State Government of Mexico. His Excellency Ms. Saavedra, Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, Ministry of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, Republic of Cuba. His Excellency Emmanuel Lu, Deputy Minister of Investment of the Nuevo León, State Government, Mexico. His Excellency Mr. Arevalo, Vice Minister of Development of Micro, Medium and Small Enterprises, Ministry of Economy, Guatemala. His Excellency Ms. Gomez, Vice Minister of Foreign Trade of Peru. His Excellency Mr. Hernandez, Vice Minister of Productive Economy of Venezuela, Ministry of People's Power of Economy, Finance and Foreign Trade of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. His Excellency Mr. Joan Marquez, Deputy Minister for Foreign Trade and Investment Promotion, Ministry of People's Power of Economy, Finance and Foreign Trade of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. His Excellency Ms. Moreno, Vice Minister for Asia, Middle East and Oceania of Venezuela, Ministry of People's Power for Foreign Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Thank you so much. May I now request Excellencies to take their respective seats and request Mr. Banerjee to give concluding remarks. With this, we have closed the inaugural session. I request all the delegates to be seated once the dignitaries will leave the hall. I request everybody, please settle down. There are few important announcements. I request everyone, please settle down. I request delegates to collect their badges for the conclave, if not collected. I am also pleased to inform you that for international delegates, a site factory visit has been arranged by our partners for the conclave, namely Pharmixil, that is Pharmaceutical Export Promotion Council, and ECMA, Automotive Component Manufacturers Association of India. All the interested international delegates may contact officials from ECMA and Pharmixil at the help desk outside the Sovereign Hall. So I would like to thank all the delegates to be a part of 9 CII India-LAC conclave. I request all the delegates that the tea is being served towards your right, so towards your left if I say. Please kindly pick up and please back by 10:45 here for the next session, which is the country session. Thank you. Delegates, kindly settle down. We would be starting the session sharp at 11 o'clock. Country session, Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to begin our next session at the 9th CII India-LAC Conclave 2023. I would like to request everyone to please settle down so that we can start our country session on Guyana sharp at 11 o'clock. May I request everyone to please settle down, take your seats so that we can start our next session sharp at 11. So the dignitaries are here. His Excellency Dr. Anthony, Minister of Health, Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Dr. Ram Swarup, CEO, Guyana Office for Investment, Office of the President, Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Captain Goevia, National Security Advisor, Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Mr. Hudson, President, Georgetown's Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And our session moderator, Mr. Ashish Kataria, Director, Ashoka Buildcon. I request you all can join me in welcoming our speakers for the session. I request everyone to please settle down. I request Mr. Kataria to moderate the session. I request everyone, please be seated. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ashish Kataria, Director at Ashoka Buildcon. I'd like to thank CII for organizing this event and getting us all together. I'd like to welcome Dr. Frank Anthony, Minister for Health. I welcome Dr. Peter Ramsarup, who is head for Guyana Office of Investment. We also have Captain Jerry Goevia, who is the National Security Advisor. Welcome, sir. And we have Kester Hudson, the President of Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to speak about our experiences of being a part of the Guyana growth story. Ashoka Buildcon is a Fortune 500 company, mainly focused on infrastructure development, and we bagged a $106 million road construction project funded by the Exim Bank. Nobody had been to Guyana earlier. It was a far-flung geography. All the information what was there was from the internet and YouTube. We could see a lot of similarities. Once we actually visited and we were on the ground. Today, the way we stand mobilized, we have almost 200 people on the ground there. We have a whole lot of equipment. We have a project which we are targeting to complete ahead of schedule. So it's been so far so good. I have been hands-on with the project. It's been 1.5 years that we've been present there. I'm hands-on with the project. I've traveled the length and breadth of the country, experienced the people, the culture, the business environment closely. I'll be sharing my perspectives on that. So Guyana, all of you all I'm sure know, is the fastest developing economy in the world for several years in a row now. And the trajectory ahead is very, very optimistic. Also, Guyana enjoys excellent relationship with all the major countries of the world, the major economies around that country. A lot of similarities that India can draw with Guyana. One, that is the only English-speaking country in that region. Second, there is a old cultural bond that we share with them. Love for cricket, that is something which bonds India, and cricket, I've seen an amazing passion for cricket in that country as well. The food is similar. The weather is hotter than ours. But a fantastic place to be. But when I traveled the length and breadth of Guyana, there are some things that I noticed. They have the most fertile land that you could find, great agricultural opportunities, but they have the most expensive food. They have a lot of money and credibility in the financial markets, but the infrastructure has so much to do. Amazing solar energy that they receive, and a lot of hydrocarbons, but the most expensive power that you can find. Great biodiversity, amazing nature, gifted by God, but tourism is still so much more to be done. And that's where I think sessions like these put things in perspective. That is the amount of opportunity that is there for us to bring on the table. It's just not an oil-driven economy. I'm sure everybody's aware that oil is fueling the boom. But the non-oil industries in Guyana have also done extremely well. They've grown at around 10% year on year, in spite of the oil boom. So it's going to be a balanced, stable economy. That's the larger, longer-term outlook. The institutional frameworks are in place. It's a democracy. Courts are functional. Agreements are honored. And this is a strength that the country has. During the course of this session, we are going to hear a lot from a lot of people who are actually driving policy in that country. Dr. Peter Ramswarup is driving the investment agenda. There is so much already happening in the health sector. We'll hear that from the Minister for Health. But other than this, I would like to tell you all that do look at other sectors as well. Do look at so many other opportunities that this country can throw to us. There is no natural fit better for Indians than Guyana in that part of the world. That's all that is there from me. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
So we have a video message from the Honorable President of Guyana, Mr. Irfan Ali. He has conveyed his regret of not being able to be a part, but I think technology is going to help bridge the gap here. So I request the video to be played.
I'm delighted to extend greetings to the 9th India-LAC Conclave, hosted by the Confederation of Indian Industry. This prestigious gathering provides a platform for generating global economic and business partnerships. Since its inception, the India-LAC Conclave has proven to be effective in fostering business collaboration across borders. Allow me, therefore, to express my profound appreciation to the Confederation of Indian Industry for helping us to bridge geographical divides and to bring my region economically closer to the subcontinent. I'm most delighted to learn that my country, Guyana, is being featured at this year's conclave. Many of you would have learned of Guyana because of the exploits of some of our famous cricketers, such as Rohan Kanai, Alvin Kalicharan, Carl Hooper, Lance Gibbs, Clive Lloyd, Shivnarayan Chanchapal, and Ramnaresh Sarwan. What may not be as well known is that Guyana has enjoyed historical and cultural ties with India dating back 185 years. Guyana and India enjoy close diplomatic relations, which are continuously being improved. Guyana is a resource-rich country, producing some of the world's finest sugar, rice, rum, gold, diamond, timber, and bauxite. Since 2019, Guyana has become an oil-producing nation, and it is anticipated that within the next 4 years, we should be producing more than 1 million barrels of oil per day. Who would have believed that Guyana would have enjoyed the remarkable progress that it has achieved? 30 years ago, Guyana was designated as a highly indebted, poor-income country. Today, it has been reclassified as a high-income country with the fastest-growing economy in the world. These accomplishments are attributable to the resilience of our people, the prudent stewardship of our economy, and the solid economic foundation that was established, allowing Guyana to now capitalize on the discovery of oil and gas. This newfound resource, wealth, has opened up immense possibilities for growth and development, propelling us towards becoming the energy, food, and industrial capital of the Caribbean. But Guyana is not hedging all its bets on oil. It is diversifying its economy with a focus on food and energy security, providing globally traded environmental services. However, Guyana, a small state of less than 1 million persons, cannot do this alone. It needs investment, and particularly through business partnership, to develop its resources and to position the country as a hemispheric powerhouse. We believe that cross-border partnerships hold immense possibilities for boosting economic and business development. Collaborative ventures between our countries, private sectors can foster an exchange of expertise, technology, and best practices, enabling us to leverage each other's strength and overcome shared challenges. Cross-border partnerships also open doors to access new markets, diversify product offerings, and tap into wider talent pool of expertise, all of which contribute to accelerated economic growth and innovation. My recent visit to India has already led to significant investment flows from India to Guyana. I invite investors from India to explore the vast array of opportunities available in Guyana, whether in the energy sector, agriculture sector, fruit processing, industrial ventures, manufacturing, ecotourism. We assure you of a favorable and conducive business environment, including an attractive fiscal regime. Our government has taken measures to facilitate foreign investment, and we stand committed to providing an investor-friendly landscape. I trust that as my country is showcased at this conclave, that it will yield greater interest in doing business with Guyana. I therefore wish every success to this year's conclave and look forward to learning of its success. I thank you.
Great. I'm going to request Dr. Peter Ramsarup to actually throw light on the He heads the Office of Investment for a very long time, and he's going to highlight on the framework and the opportunities in that country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, my colleagues, Honorable Minister. It's a pleasure, and we are very excited to be part of this conclave, and the invitation, as our President said, is extremely welcome. What we are looking to gather out of this next 2 days, and we have brought both the private sector and a partial government delegation, is, as our President mentioned, building global partnerships. You know, what we are interested in is, what is your interest with India, Latin America, and the Caribbean? We are expanding our bilateral trades between India and Guyana. It is moving at a rapid pace, but the question comes up, you know, why Guyana? What is so different about Guyana today that you would want to come, as the moderator talked about, coming into Guyana, didn't know where it was, and somehow it is a great investment destination. And we are moving towards the leading investment destination in the region. And there's some numbers that I want to just describe to you, and we have alluded to some of these numbers in the previous comments. Guyana, if you were looking at Guyana as a stock, and you were going to buy that stock, there are a couple things you would look at. One, do we have leadership, visionary leadership, transformative leadership, which we do with His Excellency Dr. Irfan Ali. He's trying to get to 2030 by 2027. That tells you how fast we're moving the economy. We believe in democracy. We have an accountable and transparent government. We continue to strengthen our institutions. We're the fastest growing economy. There's one chart I have up there that you can just take a look at. You look at the yellow chart and you see the red numbers. That's our GDP growth over the last few years. The bottom line is the rest of the world. And we will continue to grow at a very fast rate over the next few years. So in buying that stock, I call it the 1GY, you have all of the numbers to tell you we're a high-performing stock. And the question we normally ask is, why are you not there as yet? I've met a lot of companies here in this room that is in Guyana. There is the automotive industry, there's the agriculture industry, and our president says it's best that there will be no conversation in the world on food security, on climate services, on an energy without Guyana at the table. That's how far we have moved the needle. The foreign minister, external minister talked about numbers. President Modi talks about being the third, or Prime Minister Modi talks about being the third largest economy in the world. Guyana, as I would repeat, there will be no conversation. We have 19.5 gigatons of carbon with our forests. We'll be producing over 1 million barrels of oil by 2027. We believe in prosperity for our people. But what we want out of this conversation here today is building of global sectors. There is no reason why we should try to do it alone. How do we join forces? We like to use the term twinning of a product. A lot of folks go to the Caribbean, for example, to go on white sand and blue waters. Well, Guyana doesn't have blue waters, but we have the Amazon jungle. So why not twin of a product in tourism, couple days on the beach and couple days in the jungle? If you study our biodiversity and what we have in our country, we're the size of Great Britain, but with less than 1 million people. As we move towards this new economy, the need for capacity, capabilities, transfer of knowledge is very, very important. I'll show us another slide that actually is not for you to read it, but it tells you in every sector what are the opportunities? The external minister talked about millet production. We're going to move to hemp production in Guyana. We already are known for the sugar industry. We've got the best silica sand in the world. Why not make the solar panels in a green economy, right? Why ship all of the products from Asia to Brazil? Why not bring it to Guyana and do it right in Guyana? That's what we are moving to. We want to become the manufacturing hub of the region. And how are we going to do that? We're reducing energy costs, currently one of the highest in the region, by 50% by 2025 by bringing the gas to shore. And a lot of the numbers that I've put out there are just numbers from our current GDP. We have not yet monetized the gas finds. And a number that my president talked about, even though we are 62% GDP growth in 2022, our non-oil industry grew at 11%. The rest of the world highest was 5 to 6%. So when people talk about the Dutch disease, Guyana is nowhere near that. It is almost, a bad description. We've been known for agriculture, and we continue to be known for agriculture. We're using the money to modernize our industry, our gold industry, our forests, our mining. These are all sectors that we are modernizing even more today with our newfound wealth. So as you come in with any sector, we will encourage you to pay attention to our fiscal regime. Tax incentives are equal and better to many, many countries. You can own land right now in Guyana. You can repatriate all your profits. There are tax holidays on certain sectors. We are, as I'm sure the minister, when he talks about, is spending a lot of money on our internal infrastructure, roads, bridges, healthcare, education, and ultimately, the president's vision for Guyana is wealth for all Guyanese. So this slide will be available in terms of if you're looking for opportunities to work in Guyana, be in Guyana. We are looking for trade within the region also. And so pay attention to us. If you're not there yet, you may be too late in a lot of sectors. And we really look forward to working with you. Our office is designed to encourage you to meet and to guide you through the process. In our delegation, the private sector delegation, we have the Chamber of Commerce president. We have the Guyana-India Chamber of Commerce, which is recently established, is here also. So there's a lot of interaction that you can have with our folks. So with that, I want to just say thank you for allowing us to showcase our nation. We are looking forward to seeing you in our beautiful country in the near future, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramsarup. We shall be playing a short video on the country and give us a feel about the country from the other side of the planet. I request the video to be played. I've traveled the length and breadth of the country, and I can tell you the video does not do full justice to how beautiful that country is, how colorful and pretty those tropical birds are. It's something that you should visit and experience yourself. I invite His Excellency, Dr. Frank Anthony, Minister for Health, to please deliver the keynote address.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me, first of all, to express, on behalf of our President and the Government of Guyana, our heartfelt appreciation to the Confederation of Indian Industry, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the Ministry of External Affairs, Prime Minister Modi and the Government of India, who has organized this 9th India, Latin America and Caribbean Conclave under the theme, Furthering Economic Partnerships Towards a Shared and Sustainable Prosperity. We are grateful for the opportunity to present the promising business opportunities in Guyana during the dedicated session here on Guyana. Guyana, as most of you would know by now, is located on the northeastern coast of South America and is known, as you have just seen, the natural resources, vast forest covers, and a rapidly growing economy. According to the International Monetary Fund, Guyana's economy grew by nearly 44% in 2020, despite the global recession. The economy continued to expand in 2021 with a growth rate of 20.1% and an impressive growth rate of 62.3% in 2022. The forecast for 2023 indicates a growth rate of 37.2%. This has made Guyana as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Recently, we have put significant efforts to establish robust connections with nations across the globe. Our primary objective, our primary aim, is to improve our political and business relationship, not just with the LAC region and North America, but also to explore greater relationships with Europe, Africa, and Asia. Our objective is to strengthen and broaden these connections so that we can enhance economic activities in our country. Our bond with India is truly a very special one. It holds great significance for many of us in Guyana, and it has been strengthened because of our shared history, culture, and as you've heard the President, our passion for cricket. We nurture this connection through political engagements, through business interactions, and personal relationships, creating endless possibilities. The recent visits of His Excellency, the President, Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali, our Vice President, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, to India, as well as a return visit of the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jai Shankar's trip to Guyana, have demonstrated the robustness of our partnership and has paved the way for fresh opportunities for cooperation and economic growth. This conclave builds on the foundation laid by our political leaders to enhance business-to-business relations. You have just heard from Dr. Ramsarup about some of the business opportunities, and I want to use the occasion perhaps to elaborate a little bit more about some of these opportunities. In oil and gas, Guyana's development prospects has received a big boost because of the discovery of substantial offshore oil reserves. The United States Geological Survey has estimated that there are approximately 13.6 billion barrels of oil and 32 trillion cubic feet of gas in reserve. Production of oil started in 2019 and has steadily increased, and as of 2021, it has reached about 120,000 barrels per day, and it's on target to be a 1.2 million barrels per day by 2027. The government of Guyana has declared its plan to auction 14 new blocks for offshore exploration, 3 in the deep water section and 11 on the continental shelf. We hope that this auction will draw investments from India, from the LAC region, and all countries who are attending this conclave. And once it's advertised, we hope that we can see persons coming in to make these types of investment. In addition to oil and gas exploration, there are many opportunities for upstream and downstream activities in this sector. And the government, as you heard the President, welcomes investment in this sector. In terms of agriculture, agriculture has always played a critical role in our economy, with the traditional crops being rice and sugar, and they continue to be important crops in our country, but we are expanding into new crops, such as corn, soy, and of course, as you heard the External Minister, we have received recent aid from India in terms of millet production. We intend that this would become an export from Guyana, and we should see in another couple of years at least 1 billion in export from our agricultural sector. In terms of forestry, you have seen the lush green that we have as our forests. About 18.3 million hectares, which represents a staggering 87% of our land cover, is forested. This region presents a host of exciting possibilities, such as primary extraction, value-added investments such as flooring and deck, prefabricated housing and furniture, and of course, one of the other services that Guyana has been marketing is our environmental services, which include forest carbon services, biodiversity, and other eco-services. And again, if there are companies who are interested in any of these types of activities, you can meet us and we can talk about that later on. Mining, Guyana mining industry is experiencing a growth spurt. We do traditionally extraction of bauxite, diamonds, gold, and manganese. And this has impacted our local economy. But in addition to this, there have been lots of new interests in terms of exploring in Guyana, and we do believe from the work of our geologists that we have a lot of rare earth minerals in Guyana, and this is a possibility for companies to work with us to explore. In addition, we have identified areas of possible copper deposits, and we have been working to also scale up some of the mining in terms of gold, diamond, and copper production. Lithium is one of the minerals that we believe we have, and again, exploration in this area, especially the work that people are doing in terms of electric vehicles, lithium is becoming a very important commodity in the development of batteries. And we do believe that we have reserves of lithium in Guyana. So here's another possibility for us to collaborate. In terms of public infrastructure, our public infrastructure, we are looking at two main dimensions. One is to have internal economic integration and also to have integration with the sub-hemispheric meaning connections with Brazil, connections with Suriname. To achieve the former, meaning the internal integration, we have commissioned, as a government, a lot of projects as it relates to roads, highways, building new highways, airports, ferry ports or seaports, so that we can improve both river and road connections. And so this is an area where there are lots of potential for investment. The moderator spoke about one of the highways that they're doing in Guyana, and we have many other possibilities that we're working on. In terms of sub-hemispheric integration, we've been working closely to build a road from Brazil across Guyana so that the state of Roraima, which is basically landlocked, can have access to a seaport. It takes them a number of weeks if they have to go across Brazil to export, but if they come through Guyana, it will probably take them less than 12 hours to get to a seaport. So this is a road connection that we are building along with seaports, and again, there are possibilities for investment in this area. In terms of the connection with Suriname, we are working on developing a bridge, and there are other infrastructure works that the two countries have been collaborating on. Energy, as you heard, we have been putting a lot of investments in energy. We are building a gas-to-shore pipeline, and once that is completed in about 2 years' time, the cost of energy in Guyana using gas would drop significantly. And this would allow us to rapidly scale up our industrialization. But apart from working on energy in terms of bringing in the gas and reducing the cost of electricity, the government is committed to having a mix of energy or a mix of resources that will be used as energy sources. And this would include our investments in renewable. So we want to work with companies to expand solar energy, wind energy, and micro and maybe macro hydropower, because the word Guyana actually means the land of many water. And so we have lots of water resources that can be tapped to produce energy. And again, we are working, or we want to work with companies that can help us to build out this energy mix. We are also rapidly scaling up our information infrastructure, and we want to work with companies who are interested in helping us to build that out, both in terms of systems so that we can have electronic health record systems. We can put other infrastructure in place so that we can improve the efficiency of both government and businesses in Guyana. And again, we can talk to you about where those possibilities lie. In terms of health, over the last 2 years, we have started the construction of more than 14 different hospitals in Guyana, and there are lots of possibilities for us to collaborate in terms of the quality of health care that we can deliver to people in Guyana. We want to build not just a healthcare system for Guyanese, but we want to build a world-class healthcare system where people from around the region would be able to come to Guyana and get good, high-quality healthcare. Apart from that, we have started to work with a number of industries so that we can build a biomedical hub in Guyana. This would include the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, include the manufacturing of vaccines, and possibly to manufacture medical devices. And to do that, we have been working to upscale our regulatory authority and start training persons that would be fit for these industries. We know that in India, the capabilities that you have here, so I look forward to talking to the various companies here so that we can see where we have synergies and work together to improve what we are doing in Guyana. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I just wanted to give you a little snapshot of some of the possibilities in Guyana. As You know, the time that we have here is quite limited, but I hope that this would pique your interest, and during the interactive session that we'll have, perhaps with your questions, we can elaborate a little bit more. So once again, allow me to express the government of Guyana's gratitude to our host for this conclave and the opportunity to have this dedicated session related to Guyana. And on behalf of His Excellency President Mohammed Irfan Ali, we want to thank the government and people of India for this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Frank Anthony. Friends, we shall be open for a few questions that you might have. Let me just reiterate, we have on the dais Dr. Peter Ramsarup, Head of the Office of Investment, Dr. Frank Anthony, Minister for Health. We have Jerry Guavia, who is in charge of the National Security Advisor to the Office of the President. And we also have Kester Hudson, who is chairing the Guyana Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. So that's the eminent dais that we have here. We are open for any questions that you might have on this. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. This is Anup Banerjee representing the pharma industry. And I'm a senior advisor to various pharma companies based out of Mumbai. I heard Dr. Anthony speak about Guyana, which has been always a very interesting location for the pharma companies to reach. And though it's very far away, but we know what potential the Caribbean islands holds for all of us. Since I represent a company which is basically dealing in, has very modern facilities for, large volume penetrants, which is injectables and infusions, and also dry powder injections. We would like to know that what is the scope of how we can enter into joint venture or into some collaboration or cooperation with local Guyanese companies. And if that needs to be done, then, if I could get a little audience separately with you, then I can discuss. Or if you can throw some light as to what are the opportunities for pharmaceutical joint ventures in injectables and particularly in large volume penetrants.
Thank you very much for that question. We would love to work with you, and perhaps after the session, we can have a discussion pertaining to what exactly you do and maybe how we can collaborate. We have a number of local companies that have been doing pharmaceutical manufacturing, and I'm sure we can put you in touch so that we can look at possible joint ventures. Yeah, in addition to that, one of the things that we are looking at as a government is to create that biohub that I spoke about, where we envisage setting aside large acres of land and putting in the infrastructure and creating that enabling environment so that we can get companies to come and situate their manufacturing plants there. So that perhaps is another area that we can talk about.
Sure, sir. Thank you. In fact, we also intend transfer of technology for creating such infrastructure facilities in your country, which could, where we could actually, engage in equities in terms of, training your staff, putting in technical people from India, and developing the plant to full production facilities, and also, start exporting to other countries ex-Guyana. So these type of joint ventures that we're looking at, and if I get some time for you separately, sometime we can discuss.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
And one of the things that I think persons should note here, if you locate that plant in Guyana, you would have access to the CARICOM market as well as the LAC market.
Correct. Absolutely correct. That's the broader idea of thinking on these lines. Thank you,
Great.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody, any questions? Gentleman at the front here, please. We'll get your mic.
Hello. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. My name is Agarwal. We are from a company, Prizer Infrastructure. It was very interesting talk we heard just now. We are into biomass sector. We are converting these agriculture waste into energy. India is leading in NTPC. We see a lot of scope in your country for such projects. Can you guide us how we can get into this?
Yes, we are very interested. We are actually exploring a lot of waste to energy proposals right now. We have wood waste, which we don't do anything with. We have a large coconut industry that we don't do anything with the byproducts. So there's significant, much less the recycling component of our trash. So we are very interested in proposals. The Office of the President actually is looking at a few right now. So I think you have the opportunity to give your idea of how you would take our waste into energy.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to assure you that we are really a pioneer in this field in India. We have already set up a plant, and we are using these pellets. We are converting this into pellets and feeding into boilers, etc., for producing energy. We would be very keen to discuss with you on site, and we see a very good opportunity, mutual benefit for this. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I have a lot of hands going up. Already called your name, please.
Am I audible? My name is Vipul, and I represent the IT and telecom sector here. So just want to know how's the skill sets related to IT in Guyana? I mean, let's suppose if the one good part of Guyana is it's very close in the same kind of time zone as the US and the Canadian market is. So probably we can explore that thing. But the only thing that restrict any company to set up any environment is the skill sets, especially related to IT and ITS.
I'll take that initially. One of the highlight sectors is the BPO sector that we believe that Guyana could move to, given that we're English speaking, we're close to time zone. We've got large companies like Teleperformance, with close to 5,000 seats in Guyana, total of about 10 to 15,000 seats. So on the call center side, we have on the IT side, in more technical terms, I'll pass that over to Kester, who is an IT guy in our MITS company. And
Thank you for the question. Guyana is at a place where we consider it's still young as it relates to ICT. And so, in fact, what is a good fact is that quite a few of our resources are being pulled from India. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. But certainly it's an opportunity for you to come in, partner with the local companies, and build capacity. Because of our size of our human capacity, we certainly need the help and guidance, and certainly we look forward for organizations such as yours in India to come in and partner with us. Collaboration is what we could be promoting today, and so we want to engage you and see how best you can add value to Guyana.
Thank you. I would like to see you after this meeting.
Certainly.
Just maybe to add a couple of points to the query that you made. Let's take, for example, in the health sector. One of the things that we are starting to do is to develop electronic health records. And I know you have several systems here, and that's something that we'll be very interested in. I know that you've also been doing a lot of work in terms of telemedicine, and that's an area that we have started to work in. But again, if we see better technology or we can work with companies here that can offer us a more affordable solution, is something that we're interested in. In addition to that, with imaging, I know that you have companies here that can do imaging interpretation. So when we generate them, whether it's a CT or an X-ray or so forth, if we can send those images here for interpretation and get it back almost in real time, that then saves us from having to have the radiologists in country. And I think there are other applications that we can explore, but this is something that We want to work with the companies here because we know you have the skill set. So they don't necessarily have to come to Guyana. We can work with you in C2 here.
Wonderful, sir. In fact, I'm working on EHR that you mentioned, just to name that. Thank you.
Good morning.
Any questions from the agriculture and food processing sector? That's a very promising. Yes, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir, everyone. Thank CII to arrange such an interesting meeting in India-LAC conference. Myself is K. Swami from KK Consultant and Engineer and Septo India Limited. We are in many fields, but first of all, no country can develop without technical skill developed in the country. Many people want to set up the plant in Guyana, but we would like to upgrade all Guyana students to manufacture machinery and how to make that workable. We are in a pharmaceutical line, we are in Ayurvedic medicine line, we give the know-how, machinery make, everything. But we would like to put some joint venture with Industrial Training Institute of the government to upgrade their skill, to develop the Guyana students, to build machinery in Guyana, not to import from anywhere in the world. And we give complete know-how system, as well as it is Ayurveda, seaweed, different kind of value-added product, minerals, everything, food processing, increase the shelf life of foods, and so many things, and recycle of food, waste food, and recycle of everything which is in a forest. So we would like to make some kind of joint venture with the government body who are interested to develop the technical skill in their technical college or school, Industrial Training Institute, whatever it is, and we will be there to present and teach them and develop the machinery. Whatever we are exporting from India to 28 countries in the world, we would like to manufacturing in Guyana and export to third country of the world. This is our project, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think one of the areas that we are really looking forward to getting some reaction from is this whole area of capacity building and training. In Guyana, we have a number of technical institutes, and we would like to diversify the offerings that we have in these institutes. And what you're talking about is exactly the kinds of collaboration we would like to see. So perhaps we can have a more detailed discussion after the session. We'd love to talk to you.
Fantastic. Anything from the agriculture and food process? That's an area of huge promise, and that's not being discussed. So, gentlemen on the table, please.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, a warm welcome to the delegation from Guyana. My name is Girish Bajaj, Managing Director, Bajaj Process Pack Limited. Firstly, it was a wonderful visit to Guyana. I was a part of the delegation that visited Guyana recently with Dr. Jaishankar. And thank you all for the warm welcome and reception that you all provided to us. And we warmly welcome you back to India. I represent the agro and food processing sector, wherein our company sets up projects in the agro and food processing. So with that interest, I had visited Guyana even after the visit of His Excellency Dr. Jaishankar. And I have extensively visited the agricultural areas like Parika and other areas, and just to try and explore what more can be done in the agriculture and food processing sector, which, as you rightly mentioned, is one of the key focus areas. My question to you, sir, is that what is the kind of impetus being given on the supply chain? Because agriculture and food processing thrive only on the supply chain. There has to be a solid network of supply chain in terms of cold store, in terms of cold chain facilities. We as a company would like to not only generate such infrastructure, but also invest in Guyana in the times ahead. So my question to you is, what exactly is being done? Secondly, in terms of agriculture, if we have to promote agriculture, what sort of land and what sort of development impetus is being given on that, on the agriculture side? Thank you.
Thank you. I should start out that the whole food security, food need in CARICOM alone is upward of $10 billion. We import food in CARICOM. The CARICOM leaders have decided that they want to reduce that bill by 25% by 2025. Guyana is the lead in getting that reduction by 25% by 2025. So the need for agriculture, agro-processing, large-scale farming, as the Honorable Minister mentioned, I've gone into large-scale farming in corn and soya in order to create stock feed for poultry. And with hemp production, millet production, all those are new areas that we will be getting into. It's no different than anywhere else in the supply chain. Contract farming is fairly new to us. Government is willing to give large-scale land if you want to do your own supply chain. There's significant incentives on the food processing. I believe, for example, I'll throw it out. If you were to come in Ghana, have one example, the best pineapples, we believe, in the region, maybe in the world. If you go into any supermarket in Barbados, in Jamaica, Trinidad, you'll find Dole pineapples in a can. If we were to do that in Guyana, you'll own the entire CARICOM overnight, as the minister said. You have access to the entire CARICOM countries. So the other part of agriculture that we are very interested in is the whole shipping. Right? We've got to move the goods from Guyana to Barbados to the rest of the region. Both cargo shipping and air shipping, food storage, cold storage are all investment opportunities readily today for us to get to that 25% by 2025 reduction in the food bill.
Thank you. Any questions from this side? Yes, gentlemen, here. If you could get the mic, please.
I am Joseph Pierre from Haiti. I'm part of the delegation composed by Mr. Wadia and Mr. Lemke. My question is regarding financing of some infrastructures, such as the road between Brazil and Guyana, and as well bridge between Suriname and Guyana. Do you intend to finance these infrastructures with only public fund, or it will be kind of public-private financing? And I'm very interested in knowing if you have some experience in public-private financing in Guyana, and what is the result in terms of return? Thank you.
Overall, for example, Guyana government has invested in 32 international bridges from into Brazil, the border at Lethem. The first 121 kilometers is being funded through the British financing. The bridge to Suriname is open for multiple opportunities in public-private partnerships. There are going to be other big projects coming along the pike in terms of how we finance projects, but it's not only from government only. We're looking at other financing from the private sector side also.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Ganesh, originally from Bangalore, but I've made Guyana my home since 2001. So all the panelists who are here, esteemed delegates, Guyana is a place where you can raise a family. So beyond that statement, business is something which you can do very easily because people are very hospitable. It's not a tricky country. People are straightforward, and it's a democratic country. Just like India, even though they are very small, they have few ethnicities, who all live together, and they go with one nation, one people, right? And just a little bit going far, I would just give my humble view. There were a lot of people from African origin taken to Guyana in the search of gold, the El Dorado, the golden city. That is how people went there. And to receive them, they were already what we call in India the Red Indians, or the people of the land, the Amero-Indian community, right? And then, when slavery got abolished, the Indians were taken not from the British Raj, but the East India Company took these people from India. The first ship went from the Calcutta Presidency, and they had to journey over all the seas to reach Guyana. And they toiled with different sugar plantations. But Guyana was initially created by the Dutch. So you have a flavor of the Dutch there, you have the flavor of the English, the modern American influence, right? So Guyana is one of the greatest countries. I visited and traveled extensively. In fact, I was one of the few guys to export carbon fiber in 2000, and I'm back into it, into aerospace divisions too now, right? So in that gap, what I have seen in Guyana with this boost of oil, in fact, when the American ambassador had a conversation with me in 2012, he was saying before bringing Exxon, I knew what is going to happen in Guyana, so I never left Guyana. I know what is the promise. I think whatever the panelists have said there, I will reiterate the fact that now the doors are open. Please make the best opportunity. In fact, last year, same time I spoke at the FKCCI in Bangalore about Guyana, right? Please take the opportunity, and you should follow the track. And they have a very vibrant High Commission in New Delhi. They have a lot of Chamber of Commerce, and his Honorable Minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar, launched the India-Guyana Chamber of Commerce. And every region in Guyana has Chamber of Commerce. So there are many ways to reach Guyana, and like you have the the Invest Guyana, India, we have the Go Invest, right? So please talk to all the delegates here. It's a very small contingent, small number of people here. I think you should make good collaboration and coordination. That is very, very important. And see that, you get to digitize things, you get some disruptive ideas, you dematerialize, you demonetize and democratize everything what you bring to Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, we also have Jerry Govia, who is the National Security Advisor to the Office of the President. Any questions from that sector? That's a sector which again holds a lot of promise for us. Your question is from the defense perspective? Yes, gentlemen, please.
Hello, sir. My name is Parikshit Pandey. I am representing BML Limited. I am Manager Exports there. Our company is under the administrative control of Ministry of Defense, Government of India, and we are into the 3 sectors. First one is mining, second is defense, and third is rail and metro. Mining, as already it has been informed that there is a lot of scope. I need to know about what are the opportunity existing first in defense, second the urban transportation. Like we are proud to say that we are the first manufacturer of metro coaches in India. Almost half of the metro coaches running in the country are being manufactured by us. So I need to understand what are the opportunity in these 2 sectors, defense and rail and metro.
Thank you very much. You said you manufacture, did you say metal coaches?
Yes, sir. Metro coaches. Metro coaches and defense.
Oh, metro, okay.
Metro.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Rail and metro means.
Thank you very much. The gentleman that spoke just before you, I want to say thank you very much for selling Guyana the way you did. You actually did a better job than us up here. Thank you very much. But Guyana really is, we grew up hearing about this potential. This is the future in Guyana today. And I just want to tell you that in terms of when we talk about defense and security, our national security strategy is based on some common principles and values that are consistent with democracy, the rule of law, good governance, transparency, human rights. And so when we talk about national security as well and defense, you're going to be dealing with a country that we have no ambition to extend force beyond our borders. So we are particularly focused on defense, on basically taking care of our internal security systems. We are doing things like, for example, police reform. And so people who may be involved in the security sector in terms of the smart city, in terms of non-lethal weapons for police, training of policemen, internal security, there's big opportunities for that. And particularly, we are also looking to create a society where national security is directly connected to national prosperity. So everything we do in terms of creating that enabling environment is what we are involved in doing in national security. But particularly, when we look at our EEZ, we need a tremendous amount of domain awareness. So there's a need for drones, helicopters, patrol vessels, aeroplanes to do ISR work. We are there also looking after we have the FPSOs that are based out there in the drill rigs. And so patrolling the EEZ for illegal fishing is a big part of what our strategy is. And so part of my own agenda here, while I am in India, is to look at your defense industries, your security industries, shipbuilding industries. Already we are, I think Peter mentioned the road that is going into Brazil. That road is going to be a whole set of bridges. And so in the defense and security sector, there's a tremendous amount of opportunities for infrastructure, for bridges, for planes and ships, drones, anti-drone systems, and so on. I think in the next few days, going to be speaking to many, many people in the defense and security industry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, if you have any more questions post this session, the gentleman on the dais as well as many other officials are available for an interaction.
I just want to say that we have, apart from us who are up here, we have that whole table in the middle there. So can you stand so that they can see you, and perhaps if you have questions, you can talk to any one of these guys as well.
Thank you. So I think what we've seen is that Guyana is not just land of many waters, but the land of many opportunities. India has a natural synergy. We are a perfect fit. What we have is absent there, what they have is absent here. It's a perfect synergy that we have. Opportunities in areas like agri, food processing, energy, as well as manufacturing are abundant. And do not just look at Guyana as a country opportunity. Guyana is a gateway for India to the region. Please look at the bigger picture here. It's a regional hub that India can encash upon on this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, all the dignitaries. Can you just rise for the photograph, please? Thank you so much. With this, we have closed this session and moving forward onto the new session, which is on scaling new frontiers in India-LAC relations by enhanced trade facilitation.
request you to kindly remain seated.
I request all the delegates to make a note that there is an availability of Spanish translation throughout the conclave. If you are interested, you would like to collect the instruments from the counters just outside the hall. In fact, they are also available at the top, at the tables, if you see. Again, I am informing to all the international delegates, a site and factory visit has arranged by the partners for the conclave, Pharmexil and ECMA. Interested international delegates may contact officials from ECMA and Pharmexil at help desk outside Sovereign Hall. I request all the delegates to be seated as we are arranging the top table, and very soon the dignitaries would be coming. Fatima, call.
टोटल 8 चेयर लगानी है। चेयर है 2 लगा। माइक का कुछ गया। टेबल में लगेगा नहीं बैठेंगे। अमिताभ को बोलो ये इंटरप्रेटर का वो लेकर हाँ बोल दिया 8 लोग आ गए हैं हॉल में जल्दी बोलो होटल वाला इतना स्लो क्यों है? रुको पेशेंट को देखिए कब बुलाया करो अभी तो है लगा ही नहीं है ना 3 मिनट है 3 मिनट इसमें 8 12 बज तो गए हैं नहीं 5 भी है टाइम एग्जैक्टली जो टाइम लग रहा है अभी बोल दिया उसको वेट कर ये लोग भी तो खींच लिया ना अभी तो है टाइम जल्दी 6 मिनट है जल्दी just wait. एक शॉप और लेकर और धीरे-धीरे चलो। अदरवाइज आगे बिठा देना। I request all the delegates, please be seated. I request all the delegates to please settle down and take their seats as we are starting this session on scaling new frontiers in India-LAC relations by enhanced trade facilitation. May I request all the delegates, please take their seats and settle down. May I request again to all the delegates, please settle down. Those who are standing just near the door, I request them to please be seated as we are starting the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to begin our next session at the 9th CII India-LAC Conclave on Scaling New Frontiers in India-LAC Relations by Enhanced Trade Facilitation. You all can join me in welcoming our speakers for the session as they walk on the dais. Mr. Rajesh Agarwal, Additional Secretary, Commerce, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Her Excellency Ms. Deborah Saavedra, Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, Ministry of Foreign Trade and Investment, Republic of Cuba. Her Excellency Dr. Teresa Gomez, Vice Minister of Foreign Trade of Peru, Ministry of Trade and Tourism, Government of Peru. Mr. Sebastian, Director General for Bilateral Economic Affairs of the Under-Secretariat of International Economic Relations, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Cuba. Mr. Rodrigo Perez, Chief Financial Officer, Cinepolis, Mexico. Mr. Antonio Morales, Principal Executive, Development Bank of Latin America and Caribbean. Mr. Bipin Sapra, Partner, Indirect Tax, ENY, India. And our session moderator for today, Mr. Sumanta Chaudhary, Principal Advisor, International Trade Policy, CII. I request our moderator, Mr. Sumanta Chaudhary, to take forward this session. Thank you.
Well, very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen, and let me extend a warm welcome to all the speakers, as well as, of course, all of you for this session. As you all know, this session is really, in some sense, a very broad, encompassing subject of trade facilitation, looked at in its entirety. So you'd look at trade facilitation, sometimes you're only looking maybe at border procedures and the kind of paperwork that's required, but we are here looking at issues like trade finance, trade infrastructure, and the works, all of which are absolutely essential if the India-LAC trade relations is to move closer perhaps to its potential. We all know that we've touched about $50 billion bilateral trade with the last year, but certainly I think the entire trade facilitation component and there are a host of speakers which I will introduce as they go along. This is going to become critical, and we all know that perhaps most of us are signatories of the trade facilitation agreement in the WTO, but obviously there is a need to move beyond that, beyond national borders and beyond national frontiers, to see how we can actually, or the systems that we have can perhaps speak to each other. And the question of platforms, the question of interoperability, and these issues. Another very, very important aspect, particularly when there are, I think, sort of issues of distance and so on, is trade finance. And this is certainly critical for all of you who either invest or do trade. And how is it, or what kind of mechanisms can be put in place in order to help trade and industry to better take advantage of the trade finance. And there are, of course, a lot of innovative products which can be sort of launched, which I'm sure we'll hear the speakers mention as we go along. But we do have a certain constraint of time. We have about an hour for this session, and there are, of course, 7 speakers, and I would, of course, request each one of them to perhaps limit their opening remarks to about 7 minutes, and then if time permits, we can see if there are sort of a scope for more questions and so on. But just to sort of mention that there are, of course, some preferential agreements between India and this region, but those are largely PTAs. We have the India-Mercosur and the India-Chile, and perhaps, of course, deeper engagement on those FTAs could also be one of the issues that certainly, I think, confront us when we look at this broader question of how to enhance trade and investment and look at opportunities. And one last thing which is now becoming the centerpiece of any trade and investment discussion, which is digital trade and the entire technology-driven trade and investment. How can automation, how can these new technologies, blockchain and so on, be used to perhaps ensure better penetration into these markets? And I think that's another question that I think perhaps should attract our attention. But let me move on, and the first speaker in the panel today is Mr. Bipin Sapra. He is partner in direct tax Ernst & Young, and all of you are more than welcome to please speak from where you are sitting, but if you do want to use the dais, but please feel comfortable and use the mics next to you and speak. So Bipin, the floor is yours.
Is this audible? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. It's a real pleasure to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you to this session. I think a lot has been talked about the trade between India and LAC and the desire to take it to the $100 billion mark in the coming years. I think we are very well poised, and this conference is going to be, this deliberation is going to be a great positive step in that direction. I think I have a learned colleagues out here from various countries who are going to talk about what they foresee from this relationship. I just want to pick up by saying that I think there is a great potential for an economic partnership between India and LAC, and there is a great opportunity for the trade which is there. I think a lot has been done in the past, and I think post the pandemic, there has been a greater impetus to all these activities. What needs to be done is that we need to look at what are the synergies which these two regions offer us, and how the Indian trade and the trade from LAC can really be increased. I think if we really look at what has happened till now is the various trade agreements which are there in place. There is a lot of talk about raising those trade agreements to a different level, the India-Mercosur, the India-Peru, the India-Chile. I think in the coming days we would see a lot of debate on that. There would be focus on this in the coming discussion. I would want to focus on a couple of things. I think while these trade agreements do take care of most aspects, there are certain aspects which we should carefully look at. There are trade barriers which would get sorted out by when these agreements get sorted, when these agreements get signed. But there would be non-trade barriers, the non-tariff barriers which exist because of various reasons. And it could be that given that the number of countries in LAC and Caribbean, to deal with each one of them separately, there are always issues. So there are customs issues, there are regulatory issues, there are language issues, and then there are issues in relation to logistics, traveling within the region and outside. All of these, while they are not intended consequences, but they become non-trade barriers and non-tariff barriers, which the countries from India would really want to overcome. What should we be looking to promote trade and investment in this region? A lot of investment has gone in, but I think it still forms a minuscule amount of investment which Indians invest outside, and hence we should look at various areas which should where the promotion exists, and these areas could be infrastructure, information technology, manufactured products, and broader avenues in agriculture, which are really key to this thing. Apart from that, I think what needs to be done is to really diversify the trade bracket, both from a perspective of the number of countries India trades with. So currently, the majority of the trade happens with 4 countries, the Brazil, Peru, and majority happens with these 4 countries. It should really be broadened, and there are great avenues for that. Plus, the trade is currently limited to extractive and agricultural products. There's a huge potential of taking it to a different level. Then there are cultural and business relationships which really need to be looked at so that the entire investment climate can be given an impetus. That's in brief. I really want to put it out there as a starter of the discussion. And whatever is needed to really make this relationship into a really mature and long-lasting relationship needs to be done, and this is where we can begin. So thank you, and back to you.
Thanks, Vipin, and thanks for sticking to the time limit. It certainly helps all of us. Of course, I think there are, of course, various forums, and we have, there are, of course, different forums, both within government, within yourselves, to sort of look at some of these challenges that are there. But I would now move on to a different aspect, which is really the trade finance aspect, and which I said is absolutely critical. And we have Mr. Antonio Morales, Principal Executive, the representative of the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, or CAF, as it is better known. And he would certainly, I think, inform, since not all of us here may be equally conversant about what they do and what are the opportunities, but perhaps look at how can banks in India and Latin America collaborate and get into this institutional arrangement. What kind of roadmap do you see ahead? So, Mr. Antonio Morales.
Thank you. Distinguished authorities, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues of this panel, it's my pleasure to be here in this conclave representing CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean. I would want to begin this intervention by explaining briefly who is CAF, which is, in reality, a multilateral financial institution, and our mission is to support the sustainable development of our shareholder countries and the integration of Latin America and the Caribbean. We offer advice and financial support to the public and private sectors, generating knowledge to strengthen public policies to improve the quality and the impact of all our projects in the region. We always work with solid management policies, integrating social and environmental variables and including eco-efficiency as sustainability criteria in all our operations. We are made up of 20 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as Spain and Portugal in Europe, and 13 Latin America private banks. We focus in all kinds of fields, for instance, energy, transportation, telecommunication infrastructures, water, sanitation, environmental, climate change, education, digitalization, and in general, we contribute directly to several of the Sustainable Development Goals. The last year, we had a remarkable achievement, which was the historic capitalization of $7 billion, the largest in the institution's history, which will allow us to double our portfolio by 2030. The new resources will support economic reactivation in our countries and will contribute to consolidating ourselves as a region's green bank and one of the main actors for the economic and social reactivation of the region. My presence in this forum today gives continuity to the Business Forum LAC India, New Horizons, New Hopes, held in Panama the last April and organized by the government of Panama, the Confederation of Industry of India, and CAF. And in my opinion, it's a good example to say that at CAF, we aspire to become a permanent integration platform between Latin America and the Caribbean and India, which contributes to forging productive dialogues in the public and private sphere, identifying opportunities to deepen the exchange, mobilizing resources to boost the relationship, and improving the soft and hard infrastructures that enables business. The relationship of India with Latin America and the Caribbean offers a matchless window of opportunities. Our economies, complementary to each other, bring together a series of strategic assets that could leverage the commercial and investment link in a significant way for mutual benefit and allowing India's participation in institutional arrangements like CAF to unlock the latent potential of trade between our regions. To sum up, CAF wants to be the loyal partner of India to set up solid and fruitful relations between our regions. To finish, a few words in my mother tongue, Spanish. CAF desea ser el socio leal, estratégico y un puente definitivo de unión entre América Latina y el Caribe y la India. Nuestra institución, después de más de 50 años, está preparada para ello y va a poner todos los empeños económicos y de trabajo para que así sea. Para mí es un honor poder representar a mi institución en un foro como este y especialmente en un país tan bello, enigmático y maravilloso como la India. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Antonio, and thank you, I think, for illuminating all of us about what CAF does and stands for, and the opportunities that it provides, I think, to to businesses on either side to sort of try and capitalize on these trade finance opportunities. We now will turn to Mr. Rodrigo Perez, who, if I can actually say, has been a Delhiite, he tells me, for 10 years. So he's closer home than all of you. He's the Chief Financial Officer of Cinepolis in Mexico, and many of us in Delhi, I'm sure, would have visited the Cinepolis multiplex. So I'm sure that Mr. Perez would perhaps talk about his own experience in sort of setting up shop, and of course, perhaps at a more broader, generic angle as well. So, Mr. Rodrigo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary, for the introduction, and thank you so much, CII, for the invitation. Well, I want to talk a little bit about our experience in India from the eyes of the private sector. Cinepolis is a company with 52 years of experience, and it's a family-owned business in Mexico. And we decided to come to India in 2007. By then, we had only operations in Mexico and Central America, and I believe that the first thought was that we should expand to South America, but then suddenly the leaders of the company decided that India would be a good option to be. And we were wondering why. And then when we came to India, we saw the potential. We opened our first cinema in 2009 in Amritsar. And now we have more than 96 cinemas, 431 screens in 62 cities in India and 22 states. So we have invested more than $300 million in India because we believe in India. How has been our experience here after more than 10 years of operations and my personal experience? We see and we want to encourage more Mexican companies, in our case, to come to India, encourage more companies from Latin America to come to India because we see the potential. We also want to open a dialogue and I want to take this opportunity to mention that there are still some things that we believe that have to be done in terms of ease of doing business in the country. For example, to get a license for us to operate the cinemas, we have to get different NOCs, around 10 NOCs from different authorities in the country. I put the name, I don't remember all of them, but I have here, we have to get a fire, electrical, trade, police, law and order. So we have to get all these NOCs in order to be able to get a cinema operating license. Having said that as well, is that we cannot initiate this process when the cinema is under construction. So we need to wait till the cinema is fully built and then start with all this process that will take at least 2 months. So this is the only country where we do the investment, and after 100% of the investment is done, we have to wait 2 months in order to start to get revenues from it. So there is an area of opportunity that we want to highlight there, and it will be really helpful if something can be done on that regard. Based on my personal experience as well, and the opportunity that I see in India, I have started to work with it's a project with the support of the Mexican Embassy that to incorporate the Mexico-India Business Council. So our idea is exactly that, is to promote the investments because we see the potential. There are more than 200 Indian companies in Mexico, already operating in Mexico, and less than 10 companies, Mexican companies operating in India. So there is a huge potential there that Vipin mentioned about the similarities of our economies. Of course, there are a lot of similarities in terms of culture, in terms of our economies. There are a lot of potential there are a lot of similarities as well within the companies that operate in India and operate in Latin America. Most of the companies in both of the countries are family-owned, are medium and small corporations that need to find a way to start operations in Indian companies in Mexico or Latin America and vice versa. So we need to facilitate to them the road to come to India and vice versa. So that is, I believe that is a huge potential there that both the regions have, India and the region, have to take advantage, and starting from them, increase the trade and the relationship between India and Latin America and the Caribbean.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rodrigo, for, I think, explaining your own experience. But I just thought I'll mention in this context that, and perhaps you might have even utilized that there is an organization called Invest India, which does handholding for foreign businesses who want to set up shop in India to help them through the process. And maybe I wonder if, Mr. Perez, you were sort of you could of course answer whether you were able to sort of contact them and sort of get some assistance. And then in terms of the ease of doing business, of course, Rajesh Agarwal from Department of Commerce is there, but then there is this single window sort of thing, which we all know that this is always something that needs to keep improving, and we do that. But the single window system does operate where if you do need multiple sort of authorizations, then those authorizations could be sent to the different authorities. And what perhaps your own experience with this, Mr. Perez, would you just, maybe a couple of minutes?
Yeah, so we have seen some improvement in terms of that. In some states, it has become easier. We recently opened a cinema in Delhi, and we got the license within 1 month. So yes, the situation is improving. As I mentioned, we have been there for more than 10 years, and we have seen how India has evolved and how India has become more business friendly. So the entire ecosystem is, I can say that it's becoming much more professional, and have supported us to also to keep growing and keep expanding in India.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Perez, and I hope his own experience and his sort of should encourage, I think, many others to perhaps look at each other's markets much more closely. I would now turn to Mr. Sebastian Gomez Fiedler. He is the Director General for Bilateral Economic Affairs of the Undersecretariat of International Economic Relations, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Chile. Mr. Sebastian.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to start by thanking also my Indian counterparts and distinguished panelists here for inviting me to this conclave and giving me a chance to discuss this highly relevant topic, which is trade facilitation. In Chile, we acknowledge the importance of trade facilitation as a catalyzer for increasing trade flows by assisting goods to move more efficiently but also safely across borders, seeking transparent procedures and reducing red tapes. A recent study by the United Nations showed that this understanding in the region is widespread, and we continue to strive for a more comprehensive implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. Most progress in the region in the implementation of the TFA can be found in the adoption of higher levels of formalities and also transparency, reflecting an advanced TFA implementation. However, as you all know, there is still much room for improvement. I would like to highlight that despite being badly hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, in Latin America, we continue to progress in implementing our TFA commitments and also other trade facilitation measures. Certainly, trade facilitation has become a key policy to deepen and strengthen Chile's trade during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been especially relevant for MISMIS, which already face challenging entry barriers for their internationalization, such as the lack of knowledge, for example, of international logistics, the use of technology and digital tools, and compliance with foreign regulations. Besides the efforts to implement local trade facilitation measures, in Chile we have some experience in the implementation of measures that involve the collaboration with Latin American and Caribbean trading partners. I would like to highlight here the developments that we have had in the Pacific Alliance, which is a trade agreement and integration mechanism between Colombia, Chile, Mexico, and Peru. We launched a project in 2016 for the interoperability of the 4 countries' single windows for foreign trade. And this was a highly ambitious project, a platform that was built on the highest international standards. We had the support of the Inter-American Development Bank, for example, and the main goal of the single window interoperability system was to exchange in real time all the information contained in the main trading documents, such as certificates of origin, phyto and zoosanitary certificates, customs declaration information, among other documents. This experience can be considered for advancing a trade facilitation agenda between India and LAC countries, with the goal to reduce the cost of doing business, the ease of doing business, and promoting bilateral trade and investment flows. We should move on and advance in the interoperability of trade single windows, but also there are other important subjects such as paperless trade, automation, exchange of trade data. All of these are possible when we have also cross-border agency cooperation and also information exchange agreements. The participation of India in the Inter-American Development Bank and also in the CAF Development Bank can help us to further promote this exchange of best practices and collaboration in trade facilitation, which can allow us to bridge the gaps between Latin America and India. And last but not least, I would like to mention that also many Latin American countries and also Chile, we have a wide array of free trade agreements, so you can always use any of our countries as a platform for investing and also then trading in the region. And for that regard, as you mentioned, we have a trade agreement, a partial scope trade agreement with India, which also we hope to enhance in the future because we need to update the trade facilitation rules, but also digital economy and digital trade rules. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sebastian, and thanks, for indicating the kind of initiatives that have been taken in the region to promote some aspects of trade facilitation. And I think this is really bread and butter for those who invest. The issue of paperless documentation, the issue of, e-authentication, and so on. And I just had a question, a follow-up question to, what kind of framework do you think, looking at your own experience, say, in the Pacific Alliance, would you perhaps look at if we are to do the similar kind of relationship between India and the Latin American countries, particularly on the digital front?
Okay, thank you. It's a good question. For example, in Chile, we signed and then entered into force a digital economy partnership agreement, which we have with New Zealand and Singapore, and we have many candidates for accession to that agreement. In that agreement, we have a module that is focused on trade facilitation in the digital economy. We have been, for example, exploring and showcasing our best practices in the use of QR codes in certificates of origin, for example, when also you can submit in advance documentation that can be automatically processed, easing the cost. And for all of that, one of the challenges is the interagency cross-border cooperation. For that, you need to bring the experts together, the officials together, of course, in a relaxed environment, so they can first identify the challenges. And for that identification of challenges, you need to, of course, bring in the private sector and also the small and medium enterprises to hear from them directly which are the barriers that they are facing, how to help them, and then at a higher level to see how you can facilitate that with agreements, enhancing a trade agreement, maybe also starting with a memorandum of understanding between agencies, There are many ways. The important thing is that those agreements need to be flexible because digital trade moves exponentially fast. We're always behind the technological developments.
Thank you very much for indicating some of the possible ways in which this can be done. But let me at this stage draw attention to the very fact that today's world, particularly the experience that we've gathered, digital mode of delivery and cross-border delivery is becoming the preferred mode of delivery, and that has changed the way that trade and investment and businesses are there. And therefore, the entire gamut of sort of trade relations will have to look as to how perhaps India and Latin America can better sort of see and synergize on this particular aspect. But let me now turn to Her Excellency Dr. Teresa Mera. She is the Vice Minister of Foreign Trade of Peru, Ministry of Trade and Tourism, the Government of Peru, and it's a great pleasure, Your Excellency, to have you here and to share your thoughts. May I begin by asking you a particular question? We all know that Peru is known for its rich mineral resources and agriculture, while India, of course, is more a global technology and, the digital trade hub. So how can both countries leverage their respective strengths for mutually benefiting and enhancing the trade opportunities? Your Excellency.
Thank you for the question. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to start thanking the Confederation of Indian Industry and the Government of India for inviting us to this important meeting. Regarding your question, I believe that the Peruvian economy have a high level of complementarity with Indian economy. This can be translated into significant opportunities for business between both countries. As you rightly point out, Peru is one of the largest mining exporters in the world. Peru can supply the India industry that requires these minerals for technology products, that you are very enforced on that. In the same way, Peru is the world's leading exporter of a series of agricultural products. Agricultural products are our main assets for exports. These products are, in particular, I would like to mention superfoods, which are products with a high nutritional properties. These products could be incorporated into the production processes used by Indian companies. In that context, it is necessary to eliminate the barriers that could exist in our bilateral trade. Peru and India were committed in the negotiation process of a free trade agreement, but the COVID pandemic stopped this process, and we are strongly interested to continue this negotiation. It will also know that Indian companies to acquire Peruvian products with no tariffs will help with this agreement. Now, it is also important to mention that Peru is not only a commodity exporter. Like India, we have been working very hard to boost value-added products, for example, of processed food. Therefore, there are also countless opportunities to Peru to incorporate products from India. It is important to remember that a great advantage that Peru has is that we have more than 20 free agreements, which give us duty-free access to more than 50 markets, including the main markets of the world as United States, Canada, the European Union, Japan, Korea, and most Latin American countries. Therefore, I'm convinced that there are also ample opportunities for Indian inputs to be exported to Peru for manufacturing new products that can be exported to the rest of the world with these benefits. In addition, it is important to mention that Peru, in order to increase our bilateral trade, is necessary to improve our connectivity with Asia. This is a particular issue that all Latin American countries are facing when we work our trade relationship with Asian countries. In that sense, I would like to share with you that in order to take advantage of the strategic location in South America connected with the Amazon and the Pacific Ocean, the Chancay Port Terminal is under construction. In Peru, it's going to be finished next year to around November, but in this point, please, I would like you not to be confused between Chancay and Shanghai, which is in China. Sounds very similar. The entry into operation of this port will strengthen the strategic position of Peru in the Pacific and provides options for the development of investment processes and logistic industrial development, which will be at evidence in a continuous improvement to the competitiveness of our trade. The project implies the investment of $3 billion plus. It will mobilize agro-industrial products rolling cargo in bulk with solid and liquid products. An annual throughput of 1 million TEUs, container cargo, and 6 million tons of general and bulk cargo is projected. It will also imply the reduction of international transit times. For example, around 10 days on shipments to Asia. That's very important because we'll reduce the cost of transportation. We are also considering to establish a free economic zone in the port of Chancay. The infrastructure that is being implemented will provide favorable conditions to make Chancay a logistic hub in the region. This means that India enterprises making business with Peru can be sure that there will be the appropriate infrastructure will facilitate our bilateral business.
Well, thank you, Excellency, and I think particularly this last information, the Excellency, that you gave about a new port terminal which would cut down logistic costs and time, I'm sure must be music to the ears of many of you, and hopefully you will sort of take better advantage of this opportunity that is being offered. And of course, I think in terms of engagement with Peru on a free trade agreement that you referred to, Excellency, I'm sure Mr. Rajesh Agarwal will speak. But if I can turn to a completely different issue, Your Excellency, and and this is, which is now becoming again something which is integral to trade, this whole question of sustainable development and environmentally responsible practices. And how do you think that both of us can work collectively to sort of better look at the sustainability issues that are now perhaps becoming absolutely integral to trade relationships?
Well, Peru is considered a mega diverse country due to the great variety of living and genetic resources and ecosystems. Our country has comparative and competitive advantages, and its geographical location provides the necessary conditions for it to be considered a maritime, Andean, and Amazonian country. We have all these shared. These conditions have allowed Peru to develop various economic activities based on our natural resources, which contribute to promoting inclusive and sustainable economic development. For example, Peru stands out worldwide for the exports of agro-industrial products, as I already mentioned, which exceeds 9.8 billion in 2022, meaning to position ourselves as one of the main world exporters of products such as blueberries, avocados, grapes, coffee, among others. Likewise, we have significant growth in the fishing sector, which in 2022 exceeds $3.9 billion of exports. We have also developed competitive manufacturing sectors such as textile, chemical products, among others. In this sense, our government has been working to promote the development of our export supply with a view to continue improving the diversification, competitiveness, and value add within the framework. We have implemented various policy measures to improve the capacities of our producers and businessmen, in particular to help them adopt sustainable practices and business matters. We believe that these efforts can be strengthened through cooperation with domestic and external stakeholders, including international organizations and also our trade partners. For example, in the case of India, we see potential promoting greater collaboration in areas such as exchanging of experiences in innovation, about programs to support companies, especially with small and medium enterprises, to incorporate environmentally friendly practices. We know that you have experience on that field. The use and innovation in terms to clean technologies and renewable energy.
Well, thank you, Excellency. And, particularly on sort of the bioenvironment and those issues, perhaps there is a scope for looking at mutual sort of beneficial relationships. But at this stage, let me turn now to the second special address of the day, and we have Her Excellency Ms. Deborah Rivas Saavedra. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Perfect.
The Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, Ministry of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, Cuba. So, Madam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, dear colleagues of the panel, dear delegates, namaskar, everybody. I wish to start by thanking for the opportunity to represent my country in this conclave. This event in its past editions has demonstrated the wide and growing potential existing in the economic and commercial relations between Latin America and the Caribbean and India. Regions with dynamic economies and with great economic prominence in the global south, which despite cultural differences have been able to build bridges of cooperation for mutual benefit. In this context, it's a pleasure for me to exchange ideas with those presenting a key issue of the multilateral trade agenda, such as trade facilitation, which can contribute so much to the development of our regions. We live in a complex international scenario with significant negative consequences for developing countries, disproportionately affected by the persistent effects of COVID-19, a significant decline in official development assistance, geopolitical tensions and conflicts in different parts of the world, rising foods and energy prices, market volatility, inflation, unsustainable debt burdens, and climate change. For these reasons, we must focus our efforts, is our proposal, on achieving truly fair, equitable, and non-discriminatory trade that will reduce existing asymmetries and promote the sustainable development of our peoples. The achievement of a fluid and comprehensive trade between India and Latin American and Caribbean presents itself in this scenario as an appreciable opportunity for all of us. It is essential we consider, therefore, to materialize alternatives and strategic alliance at the trade level, identify existing non-tariff barriers, and establish a permanent exchange between the national trade facilitation committees of our countries. The third meeting of National Trade Facilitation Committees organized by the WTO jointly with the Latin American Integration Association held last May in Uruguay was attended by more than 60 participants from the public and private sectors of 18 Latin American countries. This shows the importance of the subject for our region. This was an opportunity to exchange national experiences on issues relevant to trade facilitation, we consider, such as the digitization of trade processes, risk management of express shipments, monitoring of their implementation, cooperation with donors, and private sector participation. In this case of Latin America and the Caribbean, all the national committees have been established already and implemented or are about to conclude the implementation of the measures of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, which constitutes a strength to advance in the goals of promoting improved trade facilitation. Cuba shows its commitment to comply with the Trade Facilitation Agreement of international scope, in relation to which it has already implemented most of its disciplines. Currently, and we are talking here about this before for our panelists, we're making progress in the implementation of the foreign trade single window. And we hope to fulfill our commitment for 2024 in this regard. Excellencies, Cuba, in addition to facing the multiple existing global challenges, deals daily with the economic, commercial, and financial war imposed by the United States for more than 60 years against my country, intensified in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, with imposition of more than 243 unilateral coercive measures against Cuba. The sum of all these factors constitutes the main obstacle to the implementation of the strategy to revive the Cuban economy in the short, medium, and long terms. In spite of such impediments, Cuba is continuously working to reposition its commercial ties with the national economies of the world, especially with India and the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. An example of this is the annual celebration of the Havana International Fair. I take this opportunity to invite all of you to the 39th edition this year in November and extend a warm invitation to participate there and encourage the participation of the business community of our countries in this occasion. In the same vein, despite the difficulties, Cuba has held the chairmanship of the Group of 77 plus China since January this year as a result of the broad international recognition of our principal policy in defense of the interests of developing countries. On September 15 and 16, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of India has mentioned in the inauguration of this event, we will host in our capital the Summit of Heads of State and Government of the Group of 77 plus China, under the theme, Current Challenges of Development, Role of Science, Technology, and Innovation, an occasion that will serve to strengthen our unity and decide on collective and practical actions in the effective confrontation of contemporary challenges, including, of course, how to continue facilitating trade and furthering economic partnerships among the global south. India will be there, we know that, and hope all of you, all your countries will be present too at that occasion. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Your Excellency, and certainly I think thanks also for drawing attention to the fact that while sometimes now in this race for bilateral and plurilaterals, we tend to forget the WTO. And that is a forum also where I think all of us have worked collaboratively in the past, and there is an occasion, I think, to sort of continue to look at this forum for common views and common sort of challenges that particularly, as you said, Excellency, developing countries, most of us are in that category face. And I think it's certainly a thought that we need to perhaps look more deeper into. And certainly, many thanks for your invitation for the Havana Fair. Again, I'm sure there would be takers to visit your lovely country. And of course, we all look forward to the G77. But on that note, let me now turn to a dear colleague and friend, and Mr. Rajesh Agarwal, who's the Additional Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, for the keynote address, and of course looks after this entire region as well. So Rajesh.
Thank you, sir, and very good afternoon to the colleagues on the panel and ladies and gentlemen in the hall. First of all, I'll pick up from where our Honorable External Affairs Minister in his plenary session talked about that there are to be the 4 key pillars of our partnership. When we are looking at strengthening our partnership, especially in trade, these are the 4 pillars we need to work upon. The first one being diversification of supply chain. It is not aftermath of COVID, Russia-Ukraine war. I think all this signifies why it is important to diversify our supply chains, why is it important to make them resilient. And when we talk of diversification and resilience, it is but natural that complementarities and the synergies between Latin American and Caribbean region and India also need to be leveraged upon. So we need to work together to see how we can work together to ensure supply chains are diversified, and so that in any kind of pandemic, any kind of disruptions, we are well placed to meet the aspirations of our citizens in our countries. So that is one reason why we need to come together, work together. He talked about we need to build our resource partnership, whether it's food, whether it's mineral, whatever whether it's technology. We need to work together and see that the resource partnerships between LSE and India needs to be built upon, because that will also add to building upon complementarities. That will also help us in diversifying the supply chains. So this is a second pillar that we need to work upon as a group and try to find solutions around it. The third is talking of developmental solutions, sharing best practices, because it's the world in which we don't need to reinvent the wheels. We need to learn from each other and try to leapfrog our developmental processes in our country. And that is always because of the synergies and the complementarities, we share a lot of technological advancement in both our nations, in Latin American region and in India. If we are able to, our industry is able to share with each other, that will also enable a faster growth for our economies. And lastly, while doing all that, we need to keep ourselves abreast of global challenges like climate change, and how do we address, how do we ensure that trade, production is all climate resilient? How do we ensure that when we talk of trade, we are also talking of climate resilient change? I think these are the 4 pillars actually on which he rightly alluded to. We need to see how we can build our partnership going forward. And one of the key indicators that we need to now move and take this partnership up to the next level is that in spite or despite of many challenges of logistics, trade finance, digital finance, all these issues, the trade between India and the LAC has actually risen in last many years, and it has reached $50 billion. So when the trade, in spite of the fact we don't have any full-fledged FTA with a Latin American country or the Caribbean, our trade has been going, and it signifies the fact that there is a reason that we need to look at it more seriously and see what more we can do to actually propel this growth to a next higher level. So that itself is an indication in the direction. I think some of our colleagues alluded to the need for having a full-fledged FTA. I wouldn't agree for more. I think personally we have been exploring this, and we have been trying to look at what are the possibilities when we come to expanding our existing PTAs or getting into a full-fledged FTAs with the Latin American countries. And in this regard, I can tell you India has been now moving in the direction of having more such partnerships, and we have moved as far as Australia in Pacific, and as far as we are moving to UK in Atlantic, and Canada in Atlantic. So it's just a matter of time that we will be engaging with Latin American and Caribbean region also to see how we can have more PTAs and how we can ensure more FTAs or full-fledged FTAs can be negotiated. One more reason that I see we need to look at FTAs is that though our merchandise trade has moved on to approximately $50 billion, the services trade is still hovering around $7 to $8 billion. As India, we have been having a services trade mix of around 35% of our overall trade is in services. But when we look at Latin America, it's around 10-12% only. So there is a huge, and services trade is something that does not have so many logistical bottlenecks. And services trade is also, which also strengthens people-to-people contact, and it also strengthens a trust in the ecosystem, which enables more and more merchandise trade, also more investments on both sides. So I think to start with, there is a necessity that we give an impetus to the service trade also, which become a catalyst for increasing investments and increasing merchandise trades between the two regions. So this is something that we need to work upon, and towards that I think a comprehensive FTAs also will be a right way to look at. So that is something that we are exploring within the ministry. We are seriously engaging with our knowledge partners to see what are the synergies and how we can build upon it. And hopefully in next few months to come, we will be seriously considering some of these negotiations to take our relationships forward. I think some of the key issues that we talked about also today regarding trade finance or issues relating to logistics, distances between, normally in trade, the trade starts with nearshoring because that's the natural way to go. It starts with nearshoring, but definitely nearshoring does not mean that trade complementarity ends there. With the advancement in technologies, with logistical challenges reducing, which more digitalization and digital integration of our economies, I think there are huge opportunities to go beyond nearshoring or go to distant lands to actually do trade. Historically, if you look at also, we do have historical trade routes with Latin America. So this is not something new to India, and definitely I think now that nearshoring and these FTAs in the neighborhoods have been done, I think it's time that we will be trying to strengthen this relationship, Latin America, to take it forward. I think digital integration is something that we should look at very strongly, because if we look at digital integration, if we are able to ensure that there is e-documentation or electronic means of trade documentation can take place, this can reduce a lot of trade cost and encourage our industry on both sides to engage with each other much more. We need to ensure that the cost that is brought down by our geographies, at least by our regulations, we are able to bring it down. We should not add cost by our regulations, which are over and above what the geography, which we can't change, is already there. So that is something we need to look how we can use leverage technology to see that more of digitalization between our trade takes place, how we make our platforms more interoperable, how we see that digital finance can bridge the divide between the phase that the financial ecosystem is not very well integrated between the two regions. I don't find an Indian bank deep presence in Latin America. On the reverse side also, I don't find a Latin American bank functioning in India. That shows that, and trade finance is a big mover of trade. There are enough evidence to show that when trade finance goes down or there is stress in trade finance, the trade also goes down. If that is the fact, we also need to look at how do we make this engagement more fruitful and see that our banking systems, our financial systems also talk to each other. And I think digital integration will be the first way, because that reduces cost, that reduces the cost of permanent presence, and it also enables banks to connect with each other and leverage on each other's infrastructure to provide services. So can we look at that? As regarding the multilateral development banks, I think IIDB, CAF, as India, I think we are seriously considering looking at how we can partner with some of these banks so that our presence in that region goes up. We feel that as a part of not being a member, we are losing out on a lot of project export opportunities that are offered through this IIDB funding or CAF funding. And that is something that we are looking at very seriously. I think our counterparts in the Finance Ministry must be engaging and looking at it how to take this partnership forward with some of these multilateral financial institutions, oblique banks. So as a country, I think as Department of Commerce in India, we are very now seriously engaging with LAC at all levels and trying to see that this engagement can enable what the target our Honorable Minister laid down in the plenary session to take this trade from $50 billion to $100 billion by 27-28. That is what we are looking at, and we hope the kind of presence and the kind of support that we have received for this LSC conclave, if this is any indication by any measure, I think we are moving in the right direction. These engagement, people-to-people engagement, industry-to-industry contact will definitely lead to some fruition and some addition to trade in the region. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Rajesh, for giving a very comprehensive and broad overview of the entire gamut of issues that should propel us from this $50 billion to $100 billion. And I think particularly one aspect that I think Mr. Agarwal mentioned about the services trade, and particularly the way that I mentioned that digitization and cross-border delivery is making locations, whether they are far off or they are nearby, irrelevant. And perhaps there is this huge opportunity, I think, in the services trade, both as an enabler and in promoting merchandise trade as well, to look at services trade in a much more intense manner. And there, I think, the use of technology, digital products, digitization should help. I have no intention of trying to summarize the discussion because Mr. Agarwal has done a much better job than I would have done. But let me sort of again take this opportunity of thanking all the speakers, and once again maybe have a vote of acclamation for all the speakers who have, I think, taken time. And so with this, we come to the end of this session, and once again, thanks to all of you for listening in so intently and patiently. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, all the dignitaries on the dais. Now may I now invite all the panelists for the group photograph. Thank you so much. So all the delegates, for your lunch, the lunch is being served in the Sovereign Hall and Inspire Hall towards my right-hand side. So I request everybody to kindly join that. And after this, we have two sessions which are running parallelly. One is the Sovereign Hall and the Inspire Hall. Healthcare and pharmaceutical, which is happening here, and the another one on the electricals and automotive, which is happening in the Inspire Hall. There is also a display of a product by our artisans under the ODOP, One District, One Product by Ministry of Commerce and Industry outside the Sovereign Hall. I request all the delegates, you can use this time to visit this. Thank you.